For this project, we want to edit this photo here to change the color of the dress, replace the background with a digitally created new background, and to apply some makeup, eyeshadow, and a little bit of lip gloss and lipstick. So I'm going to duplicate my background first. Oops. By dragging my original background and just renaming it as original, so I have a record of it for later on. So this is my lady that I want to change. I'm going to create a cutout of her first. So I'm using my quick selection tool to get a starting point for my selection. I click and run it over the areas that I want to select. If it selects too much, I hold down the Option key or Alt key on the PC, and I come in from the outside to remove areas that I want to delete from the selection. The problem here is the hair, that we have lots of hair detail that we want to retain, but as it is right now the selection is very rough. If I go to Refine Edge, I can see, I can fine-tune my selection. I can have different views, for example viewing it with the current blackout against black, with the current cutout against black, or as an overlay, different ways to look at it against white, and you can see that it's quite rough here. The way this, or one way to use this tool is to use this edit tool right now that we have and use it to click and drag and paint over all of the areas where hair is mixing with background. And we only want to add those areas, or tell Photoshop where those areas are, and Photoshop will then go ahead and try and determine, well, which part belongs to the background and which part belongs to the foreground. So I click and drag, and you can see that Photoshop does a fairly nice job of isolating the hair from the background. So this looks pretty good to me right now, and I'm going to click OK here. It just returns me to the selection part. In order to really create a cutout with a layer mask, for example, I still have to click on the layer mask button to create a layer mask. And if I turn off my original layer here, you can see it against the transparent background indicated by the checkerboard pattern. Now I want to create a new background. I'm going to create a new layer, drag it below my cutout, and I select a color by clicking on the color for foreground color, some neutral blue shade, and I'm going to use my filter actually to render clouds, and the clouds filter is good for anything except for actually making clouds. We are going to use it to make a background. It sort of gives us a pattern like so. I want to modify a little bit. I'm going to zoom out first by pressing Command minus, then I press Command T to go into free transform, and while holding down the Command key I drag the corners, and you can hopefully see how the background gets sort of a diagonal pattern and looks close to what a photographic pattern background or canvas would look like. So I'm happy with this. And what I want to do next is to change the color of this pink scrubs to a purplish color. I'm actually going to use the same color that I used for the background so that I can have it coordinated. So to accomplish this, I'm selecting my layer again that has the lady on it, and I use a new selection option that we haven't covered before, is color range. So selecting a color range brings up this window, and as I click on the part, you can see that it selects areas of similar color. I can add to the current area by going to add to the sample mode and just running my color selector over all of the areas that I want to select, so that I have a fairly good and comprehensive selection of all of the colors. You can see it's pretty much a solid white for all of the areas that it selected, plus a little bit of the lips, but I will just ignore that. So I actually can remove the lip portion if I want to by using the lasso tool, holding down the option key and drawing around it. So now I only have the scrubs selected. I can duplicate it if I want to, Command J, and now I can change the color of this layer that only contains the scrubs right now, using an adjustment layer for hue saturation. I can switch to colorize and sort of a purplish color, and then I make it only apply to the layer directly below it by creating a clipping mask. So I can fine-tune my selection a little bit more saturated, a little bit more on the blue side perhaps, something like that. So now it's blue, and sort of the before and after of changing the color of the scrubs. Well, let's make it some kind of green color, so it looks more hospital-like here. Alright, the last thing we want to do here is apply some digital makeup, and in order to do that I'm going to create a new layer just above the original layer. I'm going to rename these guys Scrubs layer, and here is my eyeshadow layer. And in order to apply some digital eyeshadow, I use my paintbrush. I choose a color that would be sort of something in the purple range, and we'll fine-tune this later on. If I paint on here, of course this is totally covering up everything that is under here. I need to switch my blend mode from normal to overlay, and I also want to change the opacity to drag it to lower my opacity until I get sort of a pleasing color. Subtlety is the key here to not be having an overwhelming eyeshadow effect. So, but we can paint over the areas that we want to give a subtle eyeshadow color here. If need be, you can switch to the erase tool, make sure it is at hardness 0 to have a nice soft edge, to fine-tune and just a little more up here. There we go. And we can fine tune the colorization, very subtle here. That's what I'm going for. And I'm going to do the same with the lips. Create a new layer for the lip coloring. Pick a new color, more in the red range. And I will do the same thing. Switch it to overlay, layer blending mode. Use my normal paintbrush. And of course this is way too bright, so I dial back the opacity until I get just subtle enough improvement here. Changing the size of my brush using the square bracket keys or the menu interface. I can fill in the lips as precisely as I need to, and they're still a little bit too bright, but it's easy enough to adjust by dialing back the opacity until you get this is none at all, and you can dial in the opacity of the lip color like so. I'm going to drag the original at the very top so I can show before and after effect. So this is my after with a changed color for the scrubs, a new digital background, eye makeup and some lip gloss. So this is before and this is after.